of the White House tomorrow at noon, where we can do it all together and make a point. Make your point, bring a joint.
Hey, Oliver North. Oliver North. Scot-free.
Jack Bauer.
Scot-free.
Who wants to do medical marijuana patients?
We want full medical marijuana amnesty for everyone prosecuted under Bush, or a guilty Republican politician as a cellmate for every pot prisoner in America.
There's so much that Dana's done beyond marijuana that would piss off the establishment that you can't really tell what they're angry at him for.
Dana Beal has spent his entire life publicly advocating for many causes: anti-nuclear, harm reduction, including clean needle programs.
Are you also against legalizing clean needles for drug addicts? I mean, do you want to spread AIDS?
Addiction cures, including being perhaps the leading voice in the world advocating ibogaine. Without getting into too much detail, ibogaine is a plant product from Africa used by certain religions there that has been found to take addicts to their pre-addictive state. Dana can be seen here approaching Nelson Mandela about ibogaine. Since this, it has become legal in South Africa. Ibogaine has gotten the attention of the mainstream in America, yet remains illegal.
Clinics around the world use it to treat heroin addiction. Imagine no more ODs, no more HIV from dirty needles.
So, let's do it.
I can't. The drug is illegal here.
It can cure heroin addiction in 24 hours, and it's illegal.
Because the patent expired, no drug companies can make a profit off it.
You can tell a society by how it treats its prisoners. You can tell a society by how it treats its addicts, the lowest of the low, below even prisoners. And our society is, whoa, it really sees these people as sinners, you know, if people are responsible for all their own problems. And maybe to some degree that's true, but at a certain point it becomes an illness. And in some people it's an illness right from the beginning. And to say that it's just a matter of their morality, you know, Dana stood against that kind of thing, you know.
The causes for which he is most widely known revolve around marijuana.
We have 25 million marijuana smokers, with the prisons and the DEA we have chasing a far larger cohort of people. Now, if we shrink that down to just the people who are using hard drugs, your chance of going to jail for dealing hard drugs will go up 10 times.
Dana has also been fighting for many years for the approval of medical marijuana use in the United States. In a 2003 poll conducted by WebMD, 3 out of 4 doctors and 9 out of 10 nurses said they favored decriminalization of marijuana for medical uses. Here is a list of conditions for which marijuana has been found effective in clinical studies. One particular focus for Dana has been the poor who suffer from such disorders. Whereas the wealthier can afford the very expensive strains of marijuana, the poor cannot. He has been active in supplying cheaper marijuana to those patients. Dana is currently sitting in a jail in rural Wisconsin for that work. On January 6, 2011, he and a partner were driving such a load to clinics in Michigan, where they were pulled over by law enforcement. The charge was possession with intent to deliver 186 pounds of marijuana.
What did he have? Medium quality Mexican pot for people who, like you and me, who can't afford $400 and $500 a quarter-ounce pot. I mean, the purpose of that was to provide marijuana for people who need it for illnesses and cannot afford the expensive stuff. Simple as that. And Dana's always been interested in marijuana for the people, is the best way I can say it. And I think that's what's made him a great person and also a target. Remember Iran-Contra, remember that the government was involved in moving and storing large amounts of cocaine in order to help its dictatorial allies in Central America. And think of that hypocrisy next time you hear about somebody smoking a joint.
For more than 10 months, Dana sat in this small jail with no exercise yard. Indeed, no access to the outside except in transit to the courthouse. We tried to interview him in jail, but the sheriff in Iowa County, Wisconsin, Steve Mitchek, refused our request. He says that he has never allowed an interview with an inmate. Just so that the viewer knows, this is not the norm. We have interviewed inmates in county, state, and federal prisons all over the country, including death row inmates. The night before Dana's sentencing, a group of supporters met up in Madison, Wisconsin.
In order to support Dana, a lot of people who have worked with him over the years want to come to Iowa County, to Dodgeville, tomorrow at 1 o'clock in order to show support for Dana and to speak to the judge and explain who Dana is and why the court should show leniency in Dana's case.
Led by attorney Brian Walker, they talked about Dana and then discussed how to get to and how to act at Dana's sentencing the next day. Sunrise in Iowa County. It's the heartland of America. Dairy farms and grain crops. For the most part, the people of this area are engaging and friendly. We managed to get some to talk about the issues around Dana's case, marijuana laws and medical marijuana.
I've never seen anybody that ever used marijuana that was addicted to it, that was ever able to quit it. I've known people that have grown it, smoked it, and that's just been my observation through my life.
It's my personal opinion that marijuana should be decriminalized. Medicinal marijuana, I think, helps a lot of people.
What do you think is going to happen with marijuana laws in the next 10 years?
You know, you take the past 20 years. 20 years ago, it was a taboo thing to talk about here in rural country, and now it's more open. People talk about it a little more. You run into a lot more people that smoke it. It's grown locally. It's going to be a normal way of life eventually. It's just going to be whether you're going to choose whether it's like drinking. Either you're going to want to do it or you don't want to do it. And I myself, I don't want any part of it.
I would feel more comfortable with my son being caught smoking a joint than I would with him driving around the countryside with a 12-pack of beer.
September 20th, 2011. Dana's sentencing is at 1 p.m. More than 30 supporters filled the gallery in the historical courtroom. Of course, the prosecutor was first to speak.
Your Honor, the defendant, having been convicted of possession of THC marijuana with the intent to deliver an amount greater than 10,000 grams, which is a Class E felony. That is the strictest penalty that Wisconsin has for the charge of possession of THC with intent to deliver. Class E felony carries a maximum penalty of a fine of not more than $50,000, 15 years imprisonment, or both. And pursuant to Section 973.01, under a Class E felony, that carries a maximum period of initial confinement of 10 years and a maximum period of extended supervision of 5 years. The state is recommending that the defendant be sentenced to 8 years in the Wisconsin state prison system, 4 years of which will be initial confinement and 4 years of extended supervision.
There is a lot of support for the legalization of marijuana.
Attorney Walker presented a view of those in the mainstream who support changes in marijuana laws and expert witness videos that explain the legitimacy of medical marijuana.
About all age-related illnesses. We're talking about neurological dysfunctions. We're talking about autoimmunity, things like arthritis, Crohn's disease, diabetes, etc. We're talking about cardiovascular disease.
Walker also showed the beginning of this video to show the history of Dana's activism.
Dana Beal found himself in jail as early as 1967 and had people working around him, trying to bring him, get him out of jail. And we've got a lot of people from a lot of different places in the courtroom here today, Your Honor. If we were in New York City, you'd probably have people with picket signs outside your courthouse. But here in Iowa County, it's a long ways to travel, and so we don't have that. Dana was involved in smoke-ins in Washington, D.C. Most of his efforts have been to not only deregulate marijuana, but to try and eliminate the harsh penalties for people who are in jail or in prison for primarily drug-related offenses.
Then it was time for testimony of the supporters.
I noticed Mr. Helmberger is happy to share his microphone. Jackie would like to tell you about why medical marijuana is important to her and how Dana Beal has played a role in her life, making her life better.
Mr. Beal has done so much to help. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's not in this for his own glory. You'll never see Dana in a three-piece suit or in a house with 3 swimming pools. No, it's not for that reason. It's because he cares in the heart.
Martin Luther King Jr. said, "One who breaks an unjust law that conscience tells him is unjust, and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice, is in reality expressing the highest respect for law." If you believe, as I do, that Dana's unity of action and words are intended to bring an end to the injustice of our current marijuana laws, I respectfully suggest that you consider that to be a mitigating factor in deciding his sentence.
I'm asking the court to take into consideration he's needed today for many kids. He's the only voice, the only one who'll listen to them, who'll deal with them, who'll give them shelter and food and relief and a listening heart. And it's a pleasure to know him because I consider him not only a true American, but a righteous man.
You know, I'll never forget Dana marching in that marijuana march with the banner, "Safe drugs now." And I understood. Then I didn't understand as much as I understand now. We don't want our children to do heroin, and we don't want them to do meth, and we don't want them to sniff glue or take spice or all this other junk. Marijuana is a safer alternative. If it's out there, people will do it instead of alcohol. They will do it instead of heroin. They will do it instead of meth. All right? The government can control it. It can regulate it. It can tax it. People will not die from it. They'll not crash cars because of it. They will not do all the things that I'm sure you see in this courtroom all the time that people do to their families.
The judge listened for several hours and then allowed Dana to give a 36-minute speech, getting his history and plans for the future on the record, particularly regarding Ibogaine.
You know, I want to say to begin with, I'm too old. I need a desk job. Okay, I really do. You only had to take Ibogaine once. Ibogaine is the first thing that we can give a heroin addict where, when the Ibogaine effect wears off, the physical withdrawal, the mental craving are completely eliminated. It's also the only thing that works for crystal meth and the only thing that works for crack cocaine or methcathinone. And it works for alcohol really well. If you don't want to try it out here, please let us release the cure to addiction to the rest of the world.
Following Dana's presentation, Kentucky lawyer Louis Gatewood Galbraith appealed to the court for leniency.
The goddess of justice, Your Honor, is blindfolded holding out that scale, which means she is blind to the evidence. The evidence is what it is. But I do not think and cannot think that she's impervious to the human condition. The human condition is full of fits and starts. It's full of pain and suffering. It's got its highs, it's got its lows. But the fact is, there's a lot of terrible suffering going on out there. And this man, whatever else he did, his motives were not for not for self-worth, not for making money, not for doing any of those things. It was to help the people.
Then it was up to the judge.
It's fair to acknowledge Mr. Beal's contributions to society But it's not fair to give him a free pass in light of what other individuals who have committed the same offense, especially with a record, especially with, you know, being on bond for the same offense. And I go back to that because it's really what tells me that there's some aspect of your respect for the law and authority that needs to be addressed. I'm going to sentence you to the Wisconsin prison system for a period of 5 years. That will be 2.5 years confinement, 2.5 years extended supervision. You are entitled to earned release. You're entitled to 57 days credit. Whether you end up doing more or less than a year, I don't know. But I just wish you luck. I'm not I'm not imposing this because I think you're a bad person, but you committed a very serious offense.
The hearing today provided a public forum on the record to promote the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes and also the rescheduling of ibogaine so that it's available to treat people who are addicted to hard drugs.
I had hoped for a better outcome.
Since we returned from Wisconsin, Dana Beal has suffered a heart attack in jail. We will continue to follow Dana Beal's case. He has similar charges to face in Nebraska. Please subscribe to Video Activist Network on YouTube for updates.